What's happening, man? I just got done with the pregame. I'm really trying to do better with that. I understand. I don't understand, but I see. I see that many have lackluster attention spans. So I'm trying to cater to that a little bit by splitting up my usual stuff, at least at the top of me talking. Because the rest of it, if I start on a topic and then it leads me to some other places, that's just natural. I don't know what to tell you. You know, it's just how I do. It's like conversation. You can't wrangle a conversation like it's a interview. You know. So anyway, I've talked about a couple things in the past couple days, but it's been jumbled in between trying to work out the decision to start the Patreon and all that other shit. Blah 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 blah. I think it is going to be necessary for me to do like a regular talk and then not go as long, maybe, because I really just want to keep doing like I do, and whatever. I think I'm just gonna keep doing like I do, and if I have to do extra to get the Patreon stuff up, it'll be fine. So later I'm gonna talk. I guess for the Patreon tonight, I'm gonna talk about a couple of things that are happening that have been happening lately, and it is it would be of some concern for everyone, though many will not. It won't resonate from actual experience, but there are many others going through similar stuff. At least for most of it. I'm not sure about one thing. I haven't really heard anybody else say one part of it, which is concerning. Very concerning. So I every once in a while I start talking about like cults, and I try to hit it from different aspects, and I think that I've figured out a way for tonight, because within talking about the solar flash stuff, because I do want to talk about the solar flash thing, it's gonna lead me into the kind of more honed in topic of cults, and more specifically, love and light cults, but also not, because there's a few of them that are not love and light. They're very supremacist, very, very supremacist, and equally as misleading and shitty. And that's another thing I'm gonna do, is be less diplomatic for. Man, fuck, is this a Patreon video? It might be, yeah. We'll see. I think a lot of the time I'm just gonna have to like re-listen to it and decide which side it goes to. But so the solar flash thing I have been looking into, and it is not a redundant event. It is not a redundant event, and it is not even a very believable event to have happened the only other time that's mentioned, which is called the Carrington event. The you know, Carrington event was a solar flash that happened in the 1800s. It has been talked about more and more recently. Strange thing is, the state that I was kidnapped in is the place where most of the Truman stuff for me started, to be honest. And when I think back before that, there is some stuff, but maybe I just wasn't thinking in that way, so I didn't notice. I'm not sure, but that's where I really started to notice stuff, and that's the first time someone mentioned the Carrington event to me. I was in like a vape, like a tobacco and vape shop. I was the only one in there. Very big shop, had lots of shit in it. No one else was in there but me and the dude that owned it. And for some, I didn't think much of it in the moment, but he initiated the conversation talking about like just conspiracy stuff instantly, like out of nowhere. And maybe I said something to him because I am known to do that, but I think it was a strange exchange. I'll say that for sure. And I think the intention was for me to hear what that dude said and then to go look it up and like soak that into my brain. Like, oh no, this is a thing. This is real. And I think that happens a lot. Not just to me, but to all of us. I think so the same way that predictive programming happens with like TVs and movies and shit like that, I think it also happens just walking around everyday life. And that's operating under the premise that not everyone that you run into or come into contact with, you know, work with, live with, all that stuff, not all of them are the same as you potentially are. And I know that that can sound very strange if you haven't like researched the things that I talk about or studied the inconsistencies that you start to see if you look throughout history, um, socio-political inconsistencies. Like there's a lot that points to what many of us have started researching independently. That's one. The fact that so many people are starting to research this very specific and niche topic, though it is very broad and all encompassing in nature, it's still very niche. Like, to the point now where, I've had to separate it in my mind because I also am into spiritualism and the occult and esotericism and the arcane and all these things, but none of them are real. Like, it's very difficult to explain in a way, but in a way it's not. And if you know, there's certain videos of mine that explain that very, very well, and then there's others that just reference it. And so if you see, someone talking about The Good Place or, Westworld is one that Howdy reminded me of. Dark City, The Truman Show, The Matrix. One that I think I may actually do a breakdown on. Maybe. I don't really do breakdowns. That's not really my thing, but I may talk about it. It's called Signal. It's got Lawrence Fishburne, who was in The Matrix, who once again plays one of the beings that is aware of the simulated reality that the main characters find themselves in. Really, really, really creepy, good movie. Such a good movie. Signal. It might be called The Signal, but just look for Lawrence Fishburne Signal on IMDb and you'll find it. Really good movie. If it costs you a couple bucks, pay it. It's worth it. These are very good examples of what I'm researching, what I'm studying. You may see me post about, spiritual stuff or, occult stuff, but that's more so things that kind of support my overall research and theory. And sometimes it's very outright and clear. You don't really have to ask anything. Other times you may need to be like, hey, what do you mean by this? And that's fine. If you need to ask me that, please do. That's why I'm putting it up. It's not about who knows more. It's not about, looking cool, like, oh, I don't need to ask you because I get it. It's not about any of that. I'm putting that there for people to figure out or to ask about. Um, but they all have aspects. There isn't one that perfectly shows what I think this to be, because I honestly don't have an answer to that. It's very, very strange, and I don't think that we can fathom it in a way that would be able to be conveyed. There's just not a way to do that. And so I say all that to say I see lots of beings that are like very specifically telling other, suffering and desperate and depressed, unhappy, frustrated, poor, many different things. They're feeding on that. They're using that for their own means and charging them for things that they shouldn't be charging them for. Taking advantage, parasitic behavior, cult leader behavior. And there are some that I've spoken about before, and I may speak about them again in this one and probably some after that. But there's other whole lanes that I think kind of skate past because of how they speak. And I've noticed that they kind of rely on that specific thing, the Carrington events, the solar flash. Some of them do it in a positive light, where they tell you that you're going to be getting powers, and that it's going to erase, whatever group they have used as a device to unify their cult. Very, very classic tactic. Hitler did that. And I have probably some polarizing feelings on Hitler. It's not binary. I think that we've been kind of dumbed down to think that everything needs to be binary. A very famous weirdo said that he liked Hitler, that makes music, and very recently was like praising Jesus a lot, but then is also not a Christian. Weird guy, but he said he admired Hitler, his fashion, because this guy's a fashion guy also. His tactics, the things that he studied, and on some of that stuff, the dude's not wrong. I think many times you see people kind of gotten to by the higher than them entities, like the archonic entities. Many times if you see someone before they come out to the world stage and start doing whatever it is they've been tasked with doing, many times they're just regular people, unless they grew up in a family that is a legacy. There are legacy families. I think that many of the people that are being followed right now on a large scale are from legacy families. And, not all of those are known. Everyone talks about the 13 families and shit like that. Those aren't the real ones. That's not the real people. Those are management. They're like upper middle management at most. You will not see or hear of the beings that actually, own this or run this. And I do mean own. Jupiter Ascending was also another good representation. All these movies and TV shows that I mention in my work, they come together to paint a picture, to build a model of this very, very complex, creepy, fake thing that we are all being victimized in one way or another, or just in totality, to be honest. the solar flash thing is I know it's gonna be a touchy, it's gonna be a touchy subject because so many have kind of accepted it as fuck. It's been accepted as a new Jesus. This might be for Patreon. We'll test it out. If it gets taken off of YouTube, we'll put it over on Patreon, huh? It's been accepted as a new Messiah, a new Jesus, and it's very genius if you think about it, because I think a lot of people struggle with the idea of an anthropomorphic, God-bodied entity being like better than them, essentially. Of course, there's more nuance to how I said it, but that's it in a gist. It's just like when you ask atheists about why they don't believe, that's basically what they're saying is like, so you think a dude went up on a cross, had all that shit happen to him, he died, and then he got back? Like, it's always those things, which I find to be very strange, because none of that's impossible. A regular dude could do that right now. It's not hard to see that. It's not to say that, you know. I think just the way that it was written, the explanation of it, makes it seem a way. But what it's really saying is that a dude was crucified. They put him in a cave, put a rock in front of it. They all assumed he was dead the whole time. Then he came back out 3 days later. That's not really that, you know what I mean? That's not that big a deal, dude. Very possible. So, I get on, you know, Abrahamic people a lot, but atheists are also kind of goofy to me. In some ways, probably more so than it's equal. They're the same as Abrahamic people, because they'll preach to you. They get mad when you don't believe what they believe. Very same situation. Satanists too. And I say that because there are different ways. Luciferianism is Satanism. And by that, I mean like the fake Luciferianism, not real Luciferian energy, because that has nothing to do with, that's not a religion. It's not a religion. It's not worshiping Lucifer. That's not what that is. So if someone says they're Luciferian and they have like upside down crosses and they do like dark magic, black magic rituals and shit, they're LARPing, or they're a Satanist and they're very confused, and it always makes me feel really awkward. Like when they start talking, I'm like, ugh. You don't know. And the reason it bothers me is because if you were to study and research what you're saying you're so knowledgeable or into, you would know better. So, ugh, you know what I mean? Ugh. So yeah, Luciferianism and Satanism are the same thing, and they're worshiping something that is a construct. And I'm not just saying that in terms of like my theory or research, or, you know, the stuff that the very few of us have come to realize about this place. I mean, you are you're worshiping the construct of someone's imagination. Like a dude like Constantine. You know, Constantine was a pagan and wrote versions of the Bible. And that's just a narrative. We don't even know if that was a real dude. And same thing for, you know, King James. I don't think King James existed. Francis Bacon seems to have written that King James Bible, and then wrote a demonology book. Right? But if you say these things to these people that put all of their being, their essence into these belief systems, they get very, very angry, and, you know, and lose their civility towards you, or, you know, you're no longer friends, or you break up, or you're no longer my son, or, you know what I mean? Which is sad. That's very weird stuff. And coincidentally is why I don't talk to my mom about those things, because I know it wouldn't go well. You know, some stuff you just don't need to talk to those people about, which can be difficult. It can be really difficult to not tell them the things that you've learned, the things that you know now, the things that you see now. And if you feel as though you want to hold on to that relationship, that's just something you don't have to do. But if it's someone that you feel like is giving you that pushback, if it feels like what some people I've seen have started to call an agent Smith, or an agent of the simulation. There's a lot of different terminology for it, but essentially a person who is holding you up, that's causing you distress. They're making this already shitty experience shittier. That's a good way to get them off you, is to just keep talking about that stuff that makes them short circuit. You know? Do research into things that are very important to them. And this might seem kind of like mean. But then you just need to remember what they're doing to you, you know? And that should help you to balance that out. And then say they're a Muslim, or a Christian, or a Satanist, or a Luciferian, which is just a Satanist. You could study their thing and then spew all the real stuff at them. And then they'll short circuit. And then they'll leave you alone. You know what I mean? Why do we pay taxes? I mean, that's a mechanism of suffering. That's not a real. Once you get past a certain point, rich people will tell you that there's no point to money. They'll tell you there's no point to money, and they'll show you how, like, they just play with it. It's not real. It's not a real thing, you know? And I've come to realize that with a lot of stuff. I keep coming back to this entire, like, thing not being a real thing. And you see lots of people say all the world's a stage, and so on and so on. It is that. They mean that. It is a stage. It is it's fictitious. It's a fake thing. Not just... I see a lot of Aboriginal people talking about the United States corporation, and I get it, but it's a pitfall. They're getting you to focus on the microcosm, when what we should be looking at is the macrocosm. Everywhere is like that. This is all illusion. It's not just the U.S. Each place is doing that. And in a way, I would say it's better than being... I forgot the name of that island with the tribe that has been steadfast. They don't let anyone on the island because, you know, they're just not fucking with it. They killed a dude that tried to bring Christianity. He tried to bring them Bibles and shit, and they shot him with arrows. I think that's really funny. R.I.P. They don't have that concept because their existence probably doesn't present them as many clues into this being not real, like not what we have been. See, we're being led to things and shown things and having things forced down our throats, and, you know, while at the same time being fed on and poisoned and all this shit. And the best way to do that and have you not figure that out is to keep your mind busy. So make you fight each other, make you think that you're different from each other just by what this looks like, and this, you know? So you fight over that. Politics, you fight over that, you fight for that. So either you're fighting another person or you're fighting for a better existence. Like, all of these things are pitfalls so that you don't pay attention to other things that are way, way more important. Like, for instance, what I've been talking about, the solar flash thing. People all over these communities, the spiritual community, the Gnostics, the there's all these different communities. I'm not going to name them all, but they're all talking about a solar flash, and their example didn't happen. Their example didn't. The Carrington event, from all of the research that I've been doing, I can't find much evidence of that actually happening. There are the accounts of two people, two beings, and one of them you can't find much information on at all, and the other one is also dead. One didn't have any background in astronomy. The other one, that's all he did. So, and the farther you go back, people that did things like that had to be a part of fraternal orders. They had to be a part of secret societies. And if you have seen me talk about those beings in those societies, while I know that they're not all evil, which doesn't fucking exist, neither does good, they are disagreeable. To me, you either participate in brainwashing everyone or taking advantage of everyone or feeding on everyone, or you don't. So you're either agreeable or you're disagreeable. So if you are involved in one of these, like you said, brotherhoods, you're not good people. You don't have to be disagreeable for me to still not fuck with you, because for you to overlook, and I know each and every one of you know, you share knowledge, you're all travelers, you have code, you say things to each other, you share these things with each other like it's a drug. So even if you claim to not know, you do know. And many of those beings like to throw that in your face. There's a very prominent one currently that's making his way up on the platform of someone I respect very much, and I'm sad about it. But they taunt, they mock. It's very weird. And they stalk. They'll watch your shit. Like this nigga's watching my shit, bro. He's got a video, I think maybe coming out tonight or tomorrow, that's called Life is a Video Game or something like that. He's never talked like that a day that I've seen him putting up any stuff. But even that's ego. If he gets more people to pay attention to this stuff, and then maybe they come check my stuff out, that's a good thing, right? But the reason why I looked into the Carrington event is because of all these other things, all these other events that get hinged on in history. Once I started to realize that history is mostly false, then I was like, oh, so if most of history didn't happen that way, and we don't really know where we are or who we are or what we are, most of the stuff that we've been told is fabrication. Literally, most of the things that we have been told is fabrication. Then what's up with this solar flash thing? Because even you have government agents, ex-government agents, government entities, scientists, NASA, all these people that are like kind of talking about a solar flare and Nibiru and all this shit, but they can't show you those things. They won't prove any of those things. You just have to pay an extra bit of attention. Like, they speak about the Van Allen belt, but they say they've gone to space. Right, it is like a savior. It's the same thing. If you pay an extra bit of attention, then you can see the contradictions. And so, going along with that same example, NASA faked a moon landing. I mean, it's very, very, very painfully obvious. Painfully obvious. Even now, they are faking missions to the atmosphere. They say they don't go past the Van Allen belt. They don't even go there. They don't even go there. There are videos of them on harnesses. There's bubbles in space. There's like little water bubbles floating around in space. green screen cracks up behind them, just all kinds of, you see many things. Matter of fact, there are videos of them where they forget to like turn off monitors and you can see the green screen behind the people being filmed on the little monitors that are behind people talking. It's lunacy. It's nonsensical and farcical. Like, but people are just like, yeah, NASA's real. They're very well paid and you know, fraudulent doomsday preppers stealing everyone's energy because they don't just take money. There are people so obsessed with NASA they wear T-shirts, but they're fakers, and you can see it. Which is why, like, you know, the concept of They Live, where you have all these people like walking around and experiencing the same thing that you're experiencing, but you have your Dicenian glasses on. I have my Dicenian glasses on, and I'm like, that's fake, that's fake, that's fake, that didn't happen, that didn't happen. And people get upset and angry rather than saying, okay, show me that. Show me what you're saying is true. And I can. And other people can as well. They don't do that. They just get mad. And then when you say, but I can show you, then they will physically like, nope, I don't want to hear that. Or they'll hang up or whatever the thing may be. To me, that is an indicator of both my being on to something and them not being the same as me. If you can hear these things that I say and that others, the few others of us that there are, say, and you're not instantly like, oh, I need to know more about that because that is my entire existence, then you're different than us. And it's not like we're going to get tiki torches and come kill you, but that, I mean, that's an important distinction because the way that I hear people talking about this solar flash is disturbing. They just, first thing I notice is the ones that position themselves to know about all this shit about this supposed solar flash. You can tell they're either referencing science fiction books or they're making shit up, literally on the spot. It might be that they're quoting from Dianetics, which is L. Ron Hubbard. L. Ron Hubbard studied under Aleister Crowley, who was also a crazy person. They make shit up and then just give it to people. Most likely, they were both in occult brotherhoods, in fraternal orders, because they weren't just brotherhoods. They were victimizing the shit out of men and women. But they probably know more truth about what I'm talking about than I do. And they're still feeding you this shit. Like, oh, let's go to Africa in the desert and we're gonna do this summoning ritual. And, you know, if you don't know what I'm laughing at or talking about, I have a video where I tell a story about something that Aleister Crowley did. Just one story, you know? And connecting that with NASA even real quick, Aleister Crowley hung out with, you know, one of the people who started NASA. You know, they're not agreeable people. When Jack Parsons died, the guy who started NASA, when Jack Parsons died, he put a Bible verse on his tombstone. It's the Bible verse that tells about the firmament. It tells about the enclosure, the terrarium that we are in. Do I think Jack Parsons was a Christian? No, I don't. I do not. Do I think Jack Parsons was telling you that everything I've been doing with NASA is fake? Yes, I do. I do think that. Because he was in a fraternal order. Everything they do is hidden hand. Everything they do is kind of a mockery or a puzzle or some other very, very, very unneeded hidden thing where they could tell you, you know, hey, I created NASA. Everything that we have done has been farcical. It's been a deception. But instead of doing that, he put a very specific, verse, Bible verse, on his headstone that just talks about the firmament. It doesn't explain anything. I think it's the one where it says, "And God created the firmament to split the waters above and below." Paraphrasing. Why would he do that? And then why on his deathbed would he talk about, feeling some guilt? Same thing with Crowley. Anyway, these are the types of beings that are essentially running these movements. And to take that a step further, let's take the Love and Light movement. The Love and Light movement in its totality. I don't mean that people that are nice or people that are good natured or want to be positive. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about a very specific movement, just like my example. So let me do the example first, so there's not like a bunch of offense. The hippie movement from the 60s was created by this is gonna have to go on Patreon. Fuck me. The hippie movement was created by the CIA. It's redacted, but it is disclosed, and you can see the kind of like circumstantial stuff that surrounds it. Like, for instance, Helter Skelter. And Helter Skelter has to do with Charles Manson. Charles Manson was a musician, desperate musician, who was he was committing petty crimes, getting arrested, and he kept getting released. And this happened many, 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 many times. And during those times, he was given LSD, and he was shown how to manipulate people via said LSD, right? And this was by the same people that were operating out of Laurel Canyon. And I don't want to get lost in those stories, but the hippie movement was a product of the CIA or intelligence. Let's just say intelligence, because they always had these project names and all this other shit. So it's almost like sometimes people will say, "Oh, well, this movement was created to meet or bring about this end, this result." But when you look at it from a macro scale, it's just keeping everyone busy. It's literally just busy work. You create a movement, and then you attack that movement, and now you have your duality. You have this side, and you have this side. It polarizes, it creates loosh, which is fed upon, whether you believe in energy vampires or, reptilians or whatever you want to call them. I just say archonic entities, because we don't fucking know. We just have a bunch of books and articles and ex-government agents running around saying that they have the real truth and shit like that, but you don't actually know. So, archonic entities. It's a playbook. They keep doing it over and over and over again. Meanwhile, when you look at things that are more recent, like the Love and Light movement, you can start to see very, very specific things that resemble the hippie movement. The creation of new words and jargon, the creation of new philosophies that borrow from old philosophies. There are things that that draw these things together that people don't want to notice. And when I talk about these archonic entities, or if you want to call them politicians, or if you want to call them the throne, or if you want to call them, the Roman Catholic Church, the Vatican, it's all the same. They all belong to the same shit. You maybe have heard people say, oh, they're all related to each other. They are in one way or another, whether it be blood or oath, or both. You know, it doesn't matter which one you speak of. It's a part of a playbook that they follow over and over and over again, and it is very much like a play, like a cosmic play, if you want to call it that. And it works on society, on the populace, over and over again. And I'm doing research into why specifically that is, like, as much as I can, because obviously I can't go up to each person in the world and be like, are you an NPC or are you a real human? Like, I don't even know that I agree with there only being two types. I think that it's more complex than that. The love and light movement is very, very monolithic, while also being very segregated, and being a person that doesn't like to be held down to one thing is almost an issue to them. And so I'm naturally inquisitive. So being naturally inquisitive, I like to look into more than one, corner, more than one circle. When you poke your head into the, let's call it the Aboriginal American circles, let's call it that, there's a lot of subversion, there's a lot of misdirection and contradiction. Many of those influencers / cult leaders will say to you, you need to give up religion. That's the slave shit that they gave your ancestors, even though they'll also say that we were never slaves, which is true. That's true. We were never slaves. But within that same statement, you're saying give up this religion, which I do agree with, but they're immediately telling you to take on this new religion that they provide to you, which has to do with a solar flash, or cosmic beings such as the Anunnaki or the Lyrians or the, whoever. And it comes with its own set of dogma that also comes from fucking religious books. Like, it's very strange. Some of them will tell you to give up religion, but then they keep quoting the Quran, or they keep referencing the Torah. It's very, very strange, and I don't really understand how it's not noticed sooner, but it does happen that way. And it's the same thing as the rest of the stuff that I'm kind of trying to bring the point to. Like, it seems very much to me that, just looking at that side, because I'm going to go hit a couple of other circles too, the point is to shake up what you have believed in for however long, whether it be your whole life or, however long, and then to disorient you by shaking that up and then getting you to accept this new, more fun or more sexy or more whatever sounding religion, because they'll say, oh, you need to give up religion, but they're getting you to take a new one on. And it's not to say that religious belief is bad or that faith is bad, because I think it helps people a lot. But the misleading nature of it, and the fact that you're now kind of like worshiping this being that's talking, or this being that's still alive, because one of them is in prison for some craziness. A lot of them are actually in prison. Not to say that they did or didn't do anything. Some of them did for sure, because it's just very obvious that they did. But some of them didn't. Some of them didn't do shit. So there's also that. I know how that goes. For sure. But it's very strange that the one who wasn't pushing religion got hit the hardest within those circles, within the Aboriginal American circles. And when I say Aboriginal American, to give you some backstory, because obviously there are people in here who don't know what I'm talking about. When you look back through history, you will find some things that did happen, or you will find some things that have proof. And one of them is the paper genocide of the true native people, the true indigenous people of, the most recent simulation cycle. I'll say it like that. People that look like me. We were told, we kept getting reclassified. So we started off as Indians. Then I don't know the exact progression, but the different things we were reclassified as: Indians, Negroes, blacks, African Americans, Moors. Now 2020, I think they started pushing that Moor shit. It's to keep a specific group of beings from realizing a clue, because even if all Aboriginal Americans were to realize that they were Aboriginal Americans, it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. It matters up to a certain point, but then you're still keeping your mind on this place, instead of trying to figure out how were they able to do that? Why did they do that? What am I really though? What was going on before then? That is important to me. That's a big clue to me. And one of the few people within those circles that was at least giving his perspective on something past that was a very specific dude. And I don't think anyone ever can say that they agree with every single thing a person says, whether it be, what they've found through their studies or just their intuition. But he did, teach me quite a bit, whether he got it from others or it doesn't really matter. I learned it from him. And just for the sake of I'm trying to do a thing. I've spoken about him before. His name is in other stuff of mine. I'm not really trying to harp on it, especially I saw a post earlier that was very strange, so we'll see what's up with that. But he was the only one that seemed to be speaking from a more truth concerned place. And while he also was using intuition, and for my position a little too concerned with fiat currency, he was still saying a lot of very true shit. He said a lot of very, very true stuff about the nature of this realm, the firmament of there being a very specific reason why you're not allowed to go in certain areas on this land, like the Grand Canyon. What you'll find if you go into certain areas of the Grand Canyon, what you'll be able to walk to. If you go through a certain part of the Grand Canyon, you'll end up in a completely different continent that, is supposedly across a great body of water, a sea, an ocean. Ocean. Just very interesting to me that is the one person who was kind of targeted and railroaded. And I've been through the justice system, the court process. So I watched. He got railroaded. I watched it happen. The others, though, don't have those types of situations. And they talk about very specific stuff that is not to say that it's not real, but it's not as real as the totality of the situation that includes all of us. They have polarizing, race-related, supremacy-based truth. Whereas this person, although he did also have some supremacist shit that he said, it wasn't in totality. He just maintained that there was a distinction between this group and this group. I disagree with that. I think that if you really want to see who your family is, check your blood. Check your blood type. That's a very big portion of my theory and possible video dissertation. I'm still trying to figure out if I'm going to do that or not. But it is a part of my research, so it's going to come back in more detail at some point. But I do think that blood type has more to do with your family, one of your types of families. I believe there are 3 types of families. That's another aspect of it that I'll get into. So yeah, I see a lot of distraction and misleading, and honestly I see a lot of setting up for fall, kind of like the Black Panther movement, which was also subverted and basically taken over by intelligence. There's a movie about it. It's not a secret. That's not a conspiracy theory. They definitely infiltrated the Black Panther movement and flipped many, many beings. Same thing with Martin Luther King. Not Malcolm X, though. Malcolm X just saw some shit with what was it? The FOI? I don't know if it was the FOI. NOI is still going. I don't remember what it was. But he saw some shit with Islam, the Muslims, that was not good, and he was going to do something about that, and someone got him. Some people say the dude that's there now, but I don't know enough to say that, so somebody got him. Anytime someone starts to really understand, something very bad happens to them. And I think that includes Malcolm X. I think he started to see some shit like this. The very beginnings of it, though. Not to say he saw, this is what is this place? I don't think he saw that far. But he definitely saw that what he was fighting a part of, something was wrong with it. And he was smart enough to where he would possibly figure it out. So, that in all respects kind of neutralizes that very, very powerful, strong, collective. I'm not going to call that necessarily a family or a race or anything like that, because again, I think we've been very, very, very geniusly misled about everything, all the way down to who your peoples are. Looks, does that really... I mean, I get how hard it would be to accept a different theory, or to unlearn the theory that you've been given, that your parents were given, that their grandparents were given, or maybe one more generation than that, because if you ask them, they don't even know who their parents were. They don't even know who their parents were. But that's orphan train shit. I'll talk about that at some point. Mind Unveiled. really, really good stuff on that. Also goes into, kind of corroborates my theories. But that essentially neutralizes a whole group, a very large group of people, of beings. And so let's move to another circle. There's the traditional love and light, which I guess what I'll say is the difference between those are the Aboriginal groups, because it's not a monolith. There are the Moors, there's the I don't want to call them, it's not Afro-futurist. I guess I'll just say African Americans, the FBA, Foundational Black Americans. Essentially, there's two overall groups. There's those that believe that they came from slaves from Africa, and those that know that that is bullshit, and at least know that they come from the descendants of the indigenous people of America. They're not, I won't say they're not violent, but they are upset, understandably, and angry, and they've been mistreated for a very, very long time as a part of this show, as a part of this play that is being perpetuated. Which, if any of them figure that out, it's just going to make them more mad. It's just going to make them more mad because it's like, oh, so this wasn't even necessary. This was just done to do it. That's going to... Didn't feel good when I figured that out, so I'm sure it's going to be a problem. So I won't call those groups violent, but they want retribution. They want retribution, and they want some justice. The traditional, like, love and light, and traditional is not the right word. It kind of is a monolith. The love and light movement, I'll just call it that, is way more mostly pacifist, because they don't really have the same type of issues to be upset over, though some of them are like, this is wrong, we're being mistreated. I would say more like red hats. There's some bleed over there, so yeah, maybe red hats, make America great again. Which, not being derogative or derogatory, anyway, I'm not getting into politics. They are, just as equally a cult. Very similar situation where they're told, like, hey, you need to drop that religion belief system, and I have the true answers. And many times it is a solar flash. It's a solar flash, or it's aliens. Same thing there. And this, to me, it points to an op. It points to an op. If there's documentation of the agencies, the intelligence agencies, using very outlandish narratives and operations as a means to an end. I've talked about it before. They've done vampire attacks. They've done, zombie attacks. A werewolf, I think, was in one of them. They're not above. It's if they'll do a macro play, then why wouldn't they do a micro play? As a matter of fact, we just saw one in Peru. That one was much more high tech. Or actually, I don't know that it was more high tech, because how do you fake a vampire invasion? How do you fake a zombie invasion? You gotta make it look good enough for the people who live in these places to believe that. And as much as this government or these academics in America would have you believe that people in those places are dumb, they're not. They're not dumb. So you really would have to put on a good show to make these beings believe, oh, that's real zombies. or, oh, we're all gonna die, it's all vampires now. So I take that back. I don't know that it was more technological necessary, but it was alleged and pushed that there were aliens there, and they were cutting off people's faces and doing all types of fantastical shit, and even a pretty, you know, a pretty good video was released. But all I saw was technology that I'm not aware of. I didn't see any aliens. I just saw technology that I did not previously know existed, which was cool to see. I'll say that. Very cool to see. But also, you know, you killed people. You killed people to push a narrative, which is very messed up and lame. They do that. They do that a lot. And so this is an op that doesn't even have to yet affect people physically. It's just messing with their heads. And so you create this Carrington event. You start to, you know, backdate and release articles. So there's plenty of, you'll find articles about the Carrington event, but they're all referencing the same shit. You can't go back to, you know, an inception point for that happening. You can't go back to the beginning, you know, reports or anything like that. And so people will fight you over that if you start this conversation with them and say, hey, but, you know, the first solar flash that everybody's referencing can't be proven, so, you know, why are you so sure about this new one coming? And I'll be the first to say that some of what I am using to base on what I'm asserting there's some contextual evidence for what I believe the situation is, but there is also some intuition and discernment. And by that, I mean, you know, there is a local sun, there is a local moon. The local sun does seem to have sunspots on it at times, does seem to, you know, radiate heat, a heat source. Is it a star? I don't know. I don't know if those exist. When you point a fairly decent camera at stars and zoom in, what you see is not what you've been presented with your entire life. What you are told stars are is what you are told the sun is. And yet, when you zoom in on a star, you get a very watery, luminescent, luminary, celestial body. I've got a few videos of me doing just that, zooming in, and you can see it. It looks like a light through some pool water. And there's even one of the videos, if you go back way further in my post, there's a video of that time where someone was looking at a star and a hand like brushed, like swept over the water like you would do with some bath water or, you know, pool water, ocean water, whatever. And people were like, oh, is this the hand of an angel or the hand of God? And I'm like, no, man, that's the people that own the terrarium. The people that own or manage the terrarium. So, you know, it's just, and I'm not trying to take away something that gives people hope or something to look forward to, but at the same time, you know, you're pushing this narrative to people that they're gonna get superpowers, and that you know, there's people saying that they remember past lives as super soldiers, and you know, there's just so much manipulation and misinformation, and no one. It doesn't have to work. Like, if you just check their stories, or take an extra second to be like, wait, why am I believing this so quickly, so easily? It would make it more difficult for them at the very least, And I think many times when they do these things, I think that they're just trying to test to see if you'll still believe it so easily. Like the Miami thing, obviously there's some other stuff going on that isn't what they would want everyone talking about, but I don't think they care very much if we talk about things or not, because beings don't do anything about it. So what does it matter if you know about it or talk about it? Doesn't matter. You're not going to do anything about it. They don't care. They don't care if you know. So I think it's just done to see, are they still super docile and kind of dumb? Yeah. All right, cool. Let's keep it going. I think that's the point of that. And it's very much a situation of thinking that you're much smaller of a force or entity, when in reality, we're doing this, much of it, to our own. We're doing it to ourselves. They're not here to make you do the things that you do. It's just a very well-crafted system that is self-managing. There are traders who ride around in special cars with badges and guns. That definitely helps them, but they don't have to do that. As a matter of fact, they could use those things and help us, do some stuff. Let's say that. But they won't. They won't do that. And the thing that kind of sucks with that whole love and light thing, aside from the fact that there is no proof of these very lofty claims and assertions, is that it's easy to go prove those things to be inconsistent or wrong or fallacy, but no one does. And you could draw the delineation between a pastor and a channeler. Not all of them. I do believe that is a real thing. I believe that channelers can be real. I believe that clairvoyance is real. I believe in all the things. I just think that there's a vast majority of charlatans. There's a vast majority of fakers, of conscious agents, of chaos agents, both official and unofficial, like assets. Assets are basically just unofficial chaos agents or unofficial spies or whatever whatever they're doing. But there are official ones too that are paid specifically by the same government that everyone says lies, but then listens to every word they say, to just do craziness, and it may be to buy more time, or who knows. It's not something that's easy to figure out, but I think one of the main points of it is that there are plenty of inconsistencies, plenty of things that should at the very least show everyone who actually exists, that actually weighs 21 grams and has a consciousness and a divine spark, whatever you want to call it. It should be fairly easy to figure this out, and I do get the distraction thing. I do also get that there is plenty to keep you from having the quote time to look into it, but it's not, it doesn't even have to be that. Like the Schumann resonance. The Schumann resonance is a cool concept, and it is definitely something that I hope is real, that I hope is true, but everyone's eating up this information on the Schumann resonance and not at all wondering about the many, 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 many frequencies that are being broadcast through you at all times. Microwaves, ELF, RFID, technology, all these things use, there's microwaves, there's all these things that use frequency, and frequency is very powerful. It can do things to your mind, to your body, to your spirit, I would probably say too. Who knows? If we're all frequency, if all of the stuff that we're seeing and touching and experiencing is all frequency, then, you know, I think that there's a lot of semantics that goes on with these groups, and I'm not trying to attack people's faith systems. I'm not trying to attack people or beings or anything like that. I just feel like the best way to explain something or to get beings to understand something is to try to hit it from as many angles as possible. And in this particular scenario, the best option is to like, hey, this is fake. All right, that made you upset. All right, my bad. I can show you the many, many, many ways that it's fake from all kinds of different angles to try to foster, the epiphany or many epiphanies. But, you can't force people, and all you can do is keep them from impeding on your sovereignty, because they're on both sides that I just spoke of, and any of the other sides that are, being left out. They're very pushy. They don't like it when you don't agree with them. They don't like it when you disprove things that they believe wholeheartedly or they tell other people to believe. It is very church-like, and it's very strange to me. Both of those more all-encompassing groups of smaller groups, they all tell you leave religion behind, but then they start new religions, which to me, that's textbook cult behavior. So people are just beings are joining cults in mass right now. And it concerns me because some cults do things to themselves where they can't undo them. Take that as you will, but they do that. And if you are duped into believing that this is it, and then there's the afterlife, or whatever you want to call that shit, then you might do some crazy wild shit like that because you think you don't have a choice, or because you think that it doesn't get any better, or whatever the situation may be. And so if you participate in that, you almost can't fully be blamed. But if you know about this specific research and these specific truths, then you're kind of a piece of shit. But if you don't know and you're just kind of doing what you think is right, are you a piece of shit? I think maybe until someone tries to tell you like, hey, this, and this. And then at that point, if you're just like, well, fuck you, Jesus is the only way, then, you become a shitty person at that point. Because not only are you pushing these belief systems and practices onto people that are even more in a bad way, or desperate for support or change or whatever it might be, you're also draining them of energy, both physical energy and spiritual. And then on top of that, like monetary, you're draining them of their actual monetary energy. Buy these crystals, get readings every day. I've got t-shirts, I've got supplements. It's very strange and saddening because, again, I don't have special resources. Matter of fact, I'm not even really doing that much digging until, something really calls out, like this Carrington event stuff and the solar flash stuff. And then when I do dig in, there's very little, which the absence of the thing should at least, cause some sort of radar to go off, you know, some sort of alert system in your head to go off. I think I'm going to end this one because I want to talk about something. I think it's going to have to go on Patreon. So I hope I gave good examples. I'm probably going to do another part to this one because I feel like I got distracted by what is happening currently. But I'll be right back. Okay, bye.